Hi there, this is Penny Johnson, and I'm going to try something new in this video. I would like to try and show some of the different notes, to put it simply, that I listen for when I'm playing in this case, the C-sharp major prelude of J.S. Bach. This is the C-sharp major prelude number 3 from Book 1 of the Well-Tempered Clavier. And it's a nice 2-page piece, lots of notes, and more importantly, lots of sharps. We're in C-sharp major, so every key is sharp. 7 sharps in the key signature. That makes a piece like this that has, as you can see, a lot of notes in it, and fast notes too. This is in 3/8, and 3/8 is a meter that we generally refer to in a quite quick tempo. So to play all these notes at a fast tempo when they're all sharp is a little bit tricky. And in some cases we have double sharps as well. But this is the kind of piece of Bach, and it happens quite often, where we get a repetitive passage. For instance, this right hand here, you can see constant 16th notes, really, for the first 8 bars, and then a change in patterning from a long note and a short note, long note, short note, etc., in that fashion for a few bars, and then back to constant 16th notes. We get the reverse happening in the left hand. You can see that the left hand begins with the long note, short note, long note, short note, continues in that fashion, and then switches with the right hand in measure 9 for the running 16th notes. And then later on in this second page here, it gets a little bit more rhythmically inventive with the right hand at measure 63 coming in with these offbeats here and some rather disjunct intervals, very wide leaps, 67, 68, 69, and so on. And then, of course, a rather brilliant finish here at the end with more running 16th notes. But that is not what I intend to show in this little video. But rather, when we have these kind of repeated passages, I like to think of them as musical stitching. You know, on a sewing machine, there's a number of different stitching types. You know, you can get, and I am not a sewer, but zigzag or a more straight line or maybe like a wavy pattern. And it's repeated, right? The same pattern of stitching gets repeated. I think of passages like this in Bach as musical stitching. They're holding the music together. And as we already identified, this stitching, as it were, is more or less constant. Sometimes it shifts hands, as it does here in measure 35. But all along the whole piece, these running 16th notes, musical stitching. Now, when we have repeated figures such as this, beginning with the right hand, the beginning, we don't want to bring every single note out with the same level of attack or the same level of sound, but we want to bring some notes out more than others. Maybe we want to pin a little brooch on one particular note in the outfit. Not brooches all over the front of the outfit kind of thing. Certain notes in these stitching sections we want to bring out in an interesting fashion so that the ear has something to hold on to. Now, in these stitching passages in the opening, we have chords outlined, basic chords, and they're repeated. So we have a C sharp major chord in the first bar, and the notes of that chord are repeated. They each get heard several times. And that changes in the next bar. We have two different notes and then different notes in the next bar, etc., etc. But on a macro level, which is what I try to listen for in particular when I'm practicing Bach, not just the micro details of semitones and trying to bend the note, as it were, but rather these macro details so as to give shape. And I guess we're referring to the counterpoint here, the structure. So on the macro level, in these musical stitching bits, we have a nice little ascending melodic line. We have the E sharp, the first note of the bar, going up a step to the F sharp in the next bar, going up a step to the G sharp in the next bar, and to the A sharp in the next bar, and then working its way back down to the G sharp in the next bar, and the F sharp in the next bar, and back to the E sharp. So this whole first line, these whole first 7 bars, all they really are is a little 4-note ascending scale, up and down. But yet look at all the notes. There's 6 notes per bar. 6 notes times 7 bars. There are 42 notes in this little passage alone, just the right hand. But really, all we need to listen for and bring out with our good finger technique, of course we try to use the pad of the finger, the fleshy part, nice curved finger, a little bounce from the wrist and a little bit of lateral rotation. All of these things to build up that finger strength does take a lot of practice and exercises, and I do have a set of exercises that I use religiously. I have some by Ernest Fontofnagny that are very good for building independence of fingers and strength of fingers, and some of the exercises of Alfred Cortot also. And I like to use the scales in double thirds. I find those very helpful. There's some printed in one of the Leschetizky books. But anyhow, within 42 notes, all we really need to listen for in that right hand is 4 notes up, 4 notes down. Let me play that for you right now. The E sharp, the F sharp, the G sharp, and the A sharp, going back down to the G sharp, the F sharp, and the E sharp. Now let's hear that right hand with all of the 42 notes in it. Okay, so in these musical stitching passages, it's helpful to pick out stepwise melodic lines. All of the other notes are certainly important, but, at least to my ears, not quite as important, and therefore we should play them with less force, with less attack, less volume, a lighter touch. And of course, to play one note in a bar with more strength than the rest, especially at a fast tempo, does take a lot of finger strength. And so that's why it's helpful to practice some of these exercises I mentioned on a regular basis. Now let's look at the left hand. The left hand is also ascending for the first few bars by step, and then descending by step, just as the right hand. So the left hand, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, going back down to E sharp, D sharp, and C sharp. So let's have a listen to those single notes now. We have the C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, and back down to E sharp, D sharp, and C sharp. So a nice little stepwise ascent in both hands. Let's hear the left hand part now in its entirety, which, as you can see, has far fewer notes than the right hand. There's only 2 notes in the left hand part for each bar, compared to the 6 notes in each note of the right hand part per bar. So let's listen to the left hand part. Now those are the first 7 bars. Now when we put the hands together, we still want to remember those notes that we just extracted. And when we're playing the notes that we just extracted, you'll note that between the hands we have parallel tenths going up for the first 4 bars and going down for the next 4 bars, or 3 bars rather. These are the first 7 bars of the piece, right? So C sharp in the bottom and E sharp in the top. That's a third, technically speaking. If we shrink that down an octave, it's a third. If we add 7 to 3, we get 10. So we have a C sharp to E sharp, a tenth, and then measure 2, D sharp to F sharp, D, E, F, right, is a third, but these are an octave apart, so it's a tenth, right? And another tenth in measure 3, E sharp to G sharp, and another tenth in measure 4, F sharp to A sharp, going back down by step, still in parallel tenths. Let's hear what those parallel tenths sound like right now. Right? Now, when you have that identified, and sometimes it can be very helpful as a reminder, or if you're a visual learner, to put a double stem. Right? You can put little double stems over those notes that you want to bring, and same thing in the bottom. I haven't done it because this is a reasonably straightforward piece, but it's something that I find very helpful in playing Bach's music. And so we've heard both of those parts in their parallel tenth, just the basic counterpoint, the movement of the counterpoint, or the structure, sort of the skeleton of this piece. And of course, all of those missing notes in the right hand and the other little single missing note in the left hand, which really is just the same note repeated over and over for the most part. This is where the texture becomes more complete and more full and warm and beautiful. Now, thirds, tenths, same thing. These are very warm intervals. These are not dissonant intervals. Let me play you a dissonant interval, such as a second and a seventh. When we hear those intervals, a second, for instance, could be C to D, E to F. Notes or letter names that are next to each other, those are seconds, and they're very dissonant. Notes that are a third apart, like C to E or F to A, are very warm, as are their inversion, sixths. Sixths are very warm. And we get a lot of those in Bach when we have these kind of repetitive musical stitching type passages, as I like to call them. So let's hear these first 7 bars, all of the parts in a reasonably musical performance, as much as can be done in this modest home studio on a keyboard. And there you have the first 7 bars, which are followed by a little parallel descending motion of the hands in measure 8 that segues nicely into the section at measure 9 in which the hands have reversed roles. So at measure 9, the left hand now has the running 16th notes, and the right hand has the long, short, long pattern. But still, we have the same idea of that moving by step. In this passage, we are moving not by tenths, but by that other very warm interval, sixths, parallel sixths. That's a very hard word to say, sixths. So the right hand, let's identify the notes that we want to bring out. In the right hand part at measure 9, we are looking at the first note of each bar. We have G sharp, moving up a step to A sharp, the next bar up a step to B sharp, up a step again to C sharp, and going back down to B sharp, A sharp, and G sharp. So just as in the first 7 bars, we now at measure 9 are moving up by step and down by step. Let's hear those notes, those extracted notes of the right hand part. Measure 9. G sharp, A sharp, B sharp, C sharp, and going back down, B sharp, A sharp, G sharp. Nice little simple upward step, downward step. Now, let's look at the left hand, which is mirroring what the right hand had at the beginning. So, out of those 6 16th notes that we have per bar, we're going to extract, as we did in the beginning with the right hand, the first note of each bar. And in doing so, we're going to see that again, we're moving up by step and then down by step. So here in the left hand, first note of measure 9, we have B sharp, moving up a step to C sharp, up another step to D sharp, up one more step to E sharp, and then going down to D sharp, down again to C sharp, down again to B sharp, and why not go one more bar down to A sharp if we really want. But there is the sort of extracted structure that I'm listening for when I'm playing this piece. Let's hear those extracted left hand notes at measure 9. B sharp, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, back down, D sharp, C sharp, B sharp. Now, let's have a listen to the left-hand part in its entirety as it's written, starting at measure 9. And again, as with the right hand in the beginning, the rest of those notes in each bar are merely fleshing out the chord, as it were. But we are listening primarily and voicing with our touch the first of those notes, moving by step up and step down. Here is the entire left-hand part from measure 9. Now, it sounds very simple, right? And that, of course, is the goal with performance, is to make things sound simple. But in order to make it simple, we not only need strength in our hands and fingers, but we need to know which notes to bring out. And going through our pieces in this fashion, and listening and singing and writing in some double stem notes here and there, is our ticket to success. If I wanted to put some double stems to this section, as we did a little bit in the beginning, I would do so in this way. Nice double stem there in the right hand, first note of each bar, going up by step and down by step. And in the left hand, same thing. First note of each bar, put the stems going down, of course, in the bass clef, up by step and down by step. Measure 9 through 15. Now, let's hear what those extracted notes sound like, or the double stemmed notes, what they sound like hands together. Remember, these two parts here at measure 9 are now moving stepwise by parallel 6. Very warm intervals, much like the parallel tenths that we saw in the beginning. Okay, so here we go. Let's listen to just those notes creating the stepwise sixth. And finally, for that same section, let's listen to all of the notes, hands together. Now this has taken already quite a chunk of time, and we're only at measure 16. But as you can see, because this piece is very repetitive, the notes change, mind you, but the pattern gets repeated. And that is the fun and the beauty of Bach, is that he is so inventive in taking a single idea and recycling it in new key areas and varying the contour of a particular interval as well. So if one were to continue doing this, it would be the same thing through measure 17 and on. You can see that now the right hand again has its many running 16th notes. The left hand has the long, short, but we can use the same system that we did earlier, identifying the first notes of each bar, which again are moving in a stepwise fashion, this time moving in parallel tenths as we did at the beginning. And then, you guessed it, at measure 25 the hands swap once more, And we get the same little bit of passage work as we had at measure 9 with the parallel 6 created between the hands. And then it gets a little bit more varied as you go on through the piece. The hands tend to switch positions more quickly, but not for long before we are back to more of that same patterning at 47, and then again over at 55 we could call that sort of a return of the main section, and then here at 63 is where we start to get some changes in the pattern with the syncopated right hand, which really persists through the rest of the piece, with the exception of this little call it a virtuosic finish here at the end, centered around a dominant pedal and a nice full chordal cadence at the end, a perfect cadence. So that is all. Perhaps we should have a listen to this movement in its entirety, this complete prelude. And I will put on the screen a little note, a little indication to show when the intervals change from tenths to sixths and where the syncopated bit comes in. Okay, I hope this is helpful. Let's have a listen to the entire Prelude number 3 in C sharp major by Johann Sebastian Bach from the Well-Tempered Clavier, Book 1. Is all for now. I hope you enjoyed this little account of a suggested method of practice. Happy practicing to you, and stay safe.